In this video, I'm going to rank the top 10 layer 2 projects in a tier list. It goes from S tier to D tier, and I'm going to defend each rating with some pros and cons. If you're looking to scoop up some layer 2 tokens, then this video is exactly what you need to get started. Alright, let's kick things off with the OG scaling project, Polygon Matic. This was one of my biggest missed opportunities ever, because I knew about them early on, but I completely missed out on the 1000x that they pulled. Anyways, Polygon is known as the Internet of Blockchains for Ethereum, and they have a bunch of different blockchains that people can choose from. One thing I really like about them is that they've always been friendly to Ethereum instead of trying to fight it. I'm also impressed by all the partnerships and integrations they have, like they got Starbucks, Disney, and even Instagram working with them. No other layer 2 project even comes close in terms of partnerships. I'm also a big fan of their acquisition strategy, because instead of building all the tech from scratch, they acquired some great protocols such as Hermes Network and Mirror Protocol. And the best part is, they plan on making Matic the native token of all those networks. Now that's the good stuff, but there are some negatives too. For example, Polygon is quite centralized if you consider their multi-sig wallet, which requires only 5 people's approval to make changes to the network. They're also centralized in terms of token distribution, because the top 100 addresses hold the vast majority of Matic tokens out there. And then, you could even argue that Polygon is not a real layer 2 project. The popular L2Beat website explains that they didn't include Polygon because their proof-of-stake sidechain doesn't inherit security from Ethereum like all these other layer 2 projects do. Now, Polygon's newer chains are definitely layer 2, but I think the critics have a fair point when it comes to their primary chain. That's why I'm ranking them a B, but I'll for sure move them up as their new chains launch and find adoption. Next up, we got Metis, a project that I have fond memories of because of all the gains it got me during the bull market. And it caught my eye initially because Vitalik Buterin's mom is part of the team. I'm not even joking, go look up Natalia Ameline if you don't believe me. Anyways, Metis started out as a fork of Optimism, so it is an optimistic rollup. But something I like about them is that they've been hard at work building on top of the original codebase. For example, they added Rangers, a sequencer pool, and a bridge that lets you withdraw back to Ethereum in minutes instead of days. I'm not going to go too deep here, but just know that these features improve security, decentralization, and user experience. Another thing I gotta spotlight is their tokenomics, because it is super fair compared to other projects. Just look at their initial token distribution. Only 7% went to the team, while 15.5% went to early investors. That's freaking amazing compared to the projects that give their insiders over 50% of their initial supply. Also, if we look at their supply schedule, we see that most of their investors' tokens have already been unlocked, which means we don't have to worry about a lot of future selling pressure. Now, on the negative side, my main complaint is that their total value locked has dropped immensely this past year. They dropped way more than their competitors, and that speaks to their overall lack of adoption. So while I do think Metis has great potential, I can't give them more than a C right now. Next up, we got Boba Network. Quite a weird name, wouldn't you say? I guess the founders must be Asians and love boba. Anyways, Boba Network is a fork of Optimism, just like Metis is. But what's interesting about them is that they're also the team behind Omise Go, a project you might have heard of if you were around back in 2018. It seems like they abandoned Omise Go and pivoted to Boba, but I'm not 100% sure what went down there. Anyways, one thing I like about them is their fast exit technology that lets you withdraw back to Ethereum in minutes instead of days. I also like their integration with Phantom and Moonbeam, because that makes them a multi-chain project and increases their market opportunity. But that's about all the good stuff I could find, because their total value locked is pitiful, their fraud proofs aren't even complete yet, and some people complain that their developers' documentation sucks. So I gotta give them a D, and I'm glad I did not invest in them when I first discovered them. Next, we got zkSync, one of the most cutting-edge layer 2 projects out there. They're a ZK rollup, which stands for Zero Knowledge Rollup, and these are supposed to be better than the optimistic rollups. Unfortunately, they do not have a token yet, but it should be coming soon. They are currently on zkSync 1.0 after all, and their token should come out along with their 2.0 network launch. Now, their 1.0 version is quite limited in terms of what it can do, like you can only do transfers, swaps, and limit orders. It cannot handle arbitrary smart contracts nor dApps, but that's all going to change when their zkSync 2.0 comes out, and I'm so excited for it. It's already in testnet and it includes a bunch of new features that are game changers. I'm talking arbitrary smart contracts, speeds of up to 20,000 transactions per second, and the latest sharding technology. Now, on the negative side, their total value locked is quite small. And they have a lot of issues with their current version, such as having to limit their transactions per second and not being able to support some MetaMask transactions. So yeah, their current state is not great, which is why I have to rate them a C, even though I can't wait to move them up once 2.0 comes out. Next up, we got a project that you best respect because they are king of the hill. But before we get there, a quick shout out to our video sponsor Binance. You can actually buy all these layer 2 tokens on either Binance or Binance US if you want to. But what I really want to highlight is their sick trading bots that you can find on their strategy trading page. They have two main ones, Spot Grid and Futures Grid. Spot Grid is where the bot places buy and sell orders for you in a certain price range and then attempts to buy low and sell high for you. It works best when the price of a coin is volatile and is swinging between a certain range. Like it would have been great for Bitcoin the past few weeks as it's been going sideways between 18 to 24K. Futures Grid is a little similar to Spot Grid, but the difference is that it lets you trade with leverage, so you can go long or short with your grid strategy as well. There's some great explainers and tutorials on their website if you want more info, but overall I think it's quite easy to use. So if you're interested and don't have a Binance account yet, then go sign up using my link below to get a deposit and trading bonus of up to $600. Alright, on to Arbitrum, and yes, they're the king of the hill. They were the first optimistic rollup to fully launch, and they are currently #1 overall in terms of total value locked and the number of dApps in their ecosystem. All of this adoption without a token makes it even more impressive. They also have some tech advantages, like their fraud proofs are more efficient than their competitors, and also their big upgrade Nitro brings their tech to a whole nother level. In terms of negatives, they do have a few. Like there are some flaws to their security, but that applies to all optimistic rollups in general. And also they had a couple outages earlier this year due to the sequencer. It wasn't super long like Solana's outages, but of course we don't want to see these at all. Either way, I'm rating them an A because their adoption speaks for themselves and all other layer 2s are playing catch up right now. Next up we got Optimism, which is second in command behind Arbitrum. You may recognize them from their huge airdrop earlier this year, and they're the biggest optimistic rollup that actually has a token. What I like about them is that they're EVM equivalent, so you can use all the Ethereum tooling and apps on Optimism without changing a thing. Also, their team is very strong and has deep ties across the Ethereum community, which is always helpful when convincing others to choose your network. But on the negative side, they have a lot less adoption than Arbitrum, and I'm not a fan of their token. It is for governance purposes, so it's not that great at capturing value, and they also have a ton of supply yet to hit the market. Overall, I think they're just average, which is why I'm giving them a B, which actually matches the 6 out of 10 rating that I gave them in my deep dive video. Next up, we got ImmutableX, a layer 2 that's focused on gaming and NFTs. They're actually a zk rollup, but they use a technology called Starks, which is newer and supposedly better than the snarks that other zk rollups are using. Something I really like about them is that they have a lot of big name integrations and partnerships. Like GameStop is going to launch their NFT marketplace on ImmutableX. Rarible has already integrated with them. And of course, one of the OG blockchain games, Gods Unchained, has been running on their network all along. One reason why they all may have chose ImmutableX is because they offer gas-free minting, which is exactly what game developers want. That said, they don't have a lot of total value locked and their governance is quite centralized. But I don't think that's a big deal because ImmutableX is focused on a niche and they aren't trying to be a general purpose layer 2 like these other projects are. That's why I'm giving them an A rating. They are laser focused on their niche and they're doing a great job at serving their target customers. Next up, we got Aztec, a project that's ultra focused on privacy. And one thing I like about them is that they're super innovative and research driven. Like they invented something called Plonk, which other projects like Mina, Polygon Zero, and zkSync have all adopted. So I gotta give them props for that. And also, I think the problem they're tackling, aka programmable privacy, is a big opportunity in the future. But on the negative side, their protocol is not EVM compatible. And to build stuff, you have to use their own programming language called Noir. So those can explain why there's not a lot of builders in their ecosystem right now. Also, the big elephant in the room is whether or not they'll be whacked by the government, just like Tornado Cash was. Governments are not a fan of privacy stuff after all, and that is what Aztec is focused on. So that's a potential existential risk that we gotta keep in mind. Overall, I give them a C. I love their vision, but too much risk and also not a lot of adoption right now. Next up is StarkNet, a project with a lot of adoption, but not in the way you'd expect. Because StarkNet is a permissionless, decentralized zk rollup that's built by the company called Starkware. Now, Starkware also has a scaling engine called StarkX that's being used by a lot of big name projects. I'm talking projects like ImmutableX, DYDX, SoRare, and Diversify. All of them are using the StarkX Layer 2 engine. Personally, I've used DYDX for a while now, and their experience is really smooth, so I gotta give Starkware some credit for enabling that. In terms of StarkNet, I love the platform that they've designed, but it is super early for them, so I can't give them more than a C rating at this stage. Now, if they do launch it successfully and all of those StarkX projects migrate over, then I can easily see them reach a B or even an A rating soon. Next, we got Loopring, a project that I discovered a long time ago, but I passed on them because I didn't like what I saw. Turns out my gut feeling was right because they barely have any adoption. They are a protocol for building high performance dexes, but it's kind of sad that they had to build their own dex instead of having other teams join and build on their network. There's an even more existential risk though, and that's the fact that they're based in China. Remember, the Chinese government is not a fan of crypto, so there's always the risk that they bring down the ban hammer when they feel like it. Now, on the positive side, they do have a partnership with GameStop, but honestly, I'm not that impressed and I don't think it'll save them. That's why I gotta give them a D rating. Alright, here's the full tier list in all its glory. Did you notice I didn't give out any S ratings? Well, that's because layer 2s are super new, so none of them deserve that god tier rating at this point. But if you like these tier lists, then watch this one about layer 1 blockchains or this one about stablecoins.